welcome everyone. We're just going to do a Q&A with the AP Adepts. There is Atman Rising, Cactus the Potted Man, myself, Hybrid, MacGuffin, and Sack. Yeah, we'll just go into it unless anyone else, any of the AP Adepts want to bring up a certain topic or anything. I'll give like a very brief introduction about myself. When I was 18, I started I dropped out from uni learning computer science. I was a bit lost and I looked into lucid dreaming. I had a lot of lucid dreams for a while, maybe well over 100. And then about a year after, I found out about astral projection, which was totally new experience. And I think I found that quite naturally after learning lucid dreaming. Yeah, and I have had a lot of experience in the astral for about almost 10 years now. And then quite recently, about 4 or 5 months ago, I started becoming a bit more public, went onto Reddit, found that a lot of people have the same questions. I found that interesting and was quite surprised that a lot of people had recurring and common confusions, misconceptions, questions. So I started getting very involved there. I have a guide and a blog that I've published a lot of my experiences that I know a lot of you have read. And I'm now writing a book because it takes a lot of time always answering the same questions. So now I can just tell people, buy my book and you'll get all the questions. And yeah, that's basically me. So, I mean, if anyone else wants to do an introduction, you can do. You don't have to.
Sponsor.
Sure, I can do it as
Yeah.
well. Who wants to go first? Okay, I'll go first then. Okay, so I was born in 1980. Around supposedly I have left my body since I was 5 or 6 years old. Parents told me about it, that I was reporting seeing a little guy on the bed, and it was me. But of course, I was not aware of any of it. I just had nightmares every night, non-stop, night terrors, the whole thing. And I started gaining lucidity, learning how to lucid dream to fight the nightmares, and I ended up defeating all of them to the point where I hardly have nightmares anymore. But a byproduct of that is that around 14 or so, I had my first sleep paralysis experience. I was terrified, I thought I was going to die. And then I went to my dad and said, "What's happening?" And he said, "Well, this is astral projection. And by the way, do you want to become a Rosicrucian?" I said, "Sure." So I became Rosicrucian for like 4 years or so. Eventually, I just became inactive, but I definitely joined the order of the one that was founded in San Diego, I think. And after that, I found a group of people who talk about astral projection online. They're called voadores, which means flyers in Portuguese. It was at the time, 2001, it was the largest projection list in Brazil, possibly in the world. They had like 3,000 people on a news mailing list. And after that, when I was 26 or so, things kind of quieted down. I had basically non-stop experience from 14 to 24. And since then, it's been quiet, once or twice a month at most. Happens sporadically, or if I take a nap. And I just kind of, Gene found me on Reddit after an overzealous bot killed an IMA that I had there for 10 years on the main AMA subreddit. So he found my reposted AMA, and the rest is.
Great, thank you. Can I ask about, Rosicrucians? Do you know much about Gnostic or Gnosticism? Like Gnostic groups?
Yeah, they're based
Okay.
on Gnostic beliefs, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I forgot to mention that I was also part of a Gnostic group for about 4 to 5 years during the past 10 years.
Wow,
So
that's
I know
great.
there's a lot of the same kind of topics.
A lot of overlap, I think.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different orders that said they are
Yeah.
derived from the Rosicrucians, who used to be a real thing, and in the Middle Ages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The cool thing about the Rosicrucians is that it was totally non-religious. So
Yeah.
that they said you believed in the God of your heart, and they never made you believe in something extraneous. There was a dogmatic thing. So
Yeah.
it's pretty like open-ended, which was.
Yeah, actually, for me, I was, so around when I was like 19, 20, I was reading Carlos Castaneda books, and
Oh yeah,
I was, whoever's read them, there's a Native American shaman called Don Juan Matus, and I saw him as like a teacher. I was just completely obsessed with this, person who was Don Juan Matus, and that's based in Sonora, Mexico. And for a while, I kind of, willed or manifested or prayed, begged, the universe for my own teacher, because I was just so, I really wanted to know, what lies beyond kind of this reality. And next thing you know, I bumped into a teacher who was from Mexico, this leader of a Gnostic group, and he was from Sonora, and he knew
Wow.
relatives of Don Juan, and yeah, it was probably one of the
Crazy
biggest
story.
things in my life.
Wow. I read all the books too when I was growing up, and The Art of Dreaming for me still is one of the best books someone can read about this.
Yeah,
Just in terms of basic techniques,
yeah,
The stuff that he sees on the other side, I don't put a lot of stock into it, but the techniques that are in there, those are priceless.
yeah, definitely. Anyone else? Any AP Adepts wants to?
You said the name of that book was The Art of Dreaming?
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yeah,
It's one
Carlos
of the
Castaneda.
Castaneda books.
I'd like to do an introduction.
Yeah, sure, Yoshi.
So, I've been in AP basically like by location and remote viewing for about 2 years, and I've also picked up Reiki since then. I joined the server about 6 weeks ago, and I have had a lot of more like detailed bilocation and remote viewing experiences, and recently had my first true astral projection experience where everything was blue around me because I'm a blue entity. So that was really cool. I
Congrats.
kind of looked like Casper.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to introduce themselves?
I think I can do it.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Want to go first, Cactus?
I was just
No
gonna
problem.
say, is the introduction kind of like our story, or is it just like
Just
brief?
anything really. Yeah, you can
Okay.
give a story or a brief
Um,
introduction, whatever.
I'm Cactus the Potted Man. I guess for my spiritual story is that one day I saw this thing called alchemy. I'm like, hey, that seems interesting. And then I started researching about it. And then I found astral projection shortly after that. Said, hey, what's that? And I started practicing astral projection. Got to vibrations on my first night, AP'd, and then from there, the rest is history. Just kind of astral projecting in tandem, getting better and better at it. Took me about a year to get really proficient at it. And then afterwards, I just started researching the best I could and asking entities, trying out different astral projection techniques, trying out things spiritually, got into energy work, further into spiritual alchemy, got into lab alchemy. And then I think about a half year into that, I attempted bilocation and found my real niche of energy work and bilocation, where I really enjoy myself. And from there, it was just a lot of asking myself questions and researching the spiritual stuff. And over time, I got notes, made up notes for myself and binders of notes further and further. And then sometime, fast forward to now, sometime like what, near October, I found this server. And I'm like, hey, this seems like really cool. Because I was searching for a group of spiritual people and was pushed to start releasing some of my information and knowledge. Created a whole separate server for archiving that. But here we are.
Cool.
Not super interesting. Just
No, it's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hybrid, did you want to go?
All right. So my name is Hybrid, and I always have been since when I was about 14 into lucid dreaming. But I wasn't really sure about what I was doing. I was just trying to do it because like I was watching videos on YouTube and stuff about like lucid dreaming, and I always did it since about today. And I found about astral projection about 2 years ago. And still, I wasn't really sure about what I was doing. I mean, I didn't have this much information and stuff, but I had my first experience about a year ago. And since when I found the server and I gained all the information talking to experienced people and people in general, I have been able to astral project pretty consistently, and I had a lot of experiences. If there's something I feel like I'm good at is giving advice to people on like helping them to get astral projection, because I failed a lot of times but I also succeeded a lot of times. So yeah, I'm happy to be here tonight.
The
That's
master
it.
has killed more than the student has tried.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Okay, do we have anyone else for an introduction?
Yeah,
I think that's. Oh yes.
I can introduce myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm Sackboy on Reddit, or Neil in real life. I just turned 39 actually 10 minutes ago, so to give an idea of my age. It's my birthday today.
From the same age.
There we go.
Yeah.
Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to
I think when
you.
people are 39, you don't really wish them happy birthday anymore. You just sort of shrug
Yeah,
and
you
nod
start
and say,
ignoring your birthdays.
yeah.
You know what?
Yeah,
I'm still gonna sing a happy birthday in my head.
Yeah,
Thank you very
everyone needs a
much.
happy birthday.
So I got into this from a sleep paralysis episode when I was about 17, I think. I started reading widely about what was going on, and at the time there was like it's a sort of wild west internet of GeoCities sites and weird information out there. Sort of read everything and eventually sort of focused on lucid dreaming and can't even remember where I heard of astral projection or read about it for the first time, but I knew I had to try it. Probably took about a year before I had my first proper full separation. And after that, they sort of came thick and fast through my late teens and early 20s. I, I think compared to a lot of stuff I've read, I've had fairly grounded experiences, mostly sort of real time zone stuff. It might just be my unique vibration is quite materialistic, maybe. But yeah, at the minute, I'd say for about 10, 15 years, then I kind of fell out of it in terms of an active practice, and just sort of it would just happen randomly, and I go, oh, here I am. It's such a weird thing to lose interest in, because it's so mind blowing, and it's so weird that we can sort of fall out of it for a while and then come back. But I'm heavily back in it now, searching for a good, reliable technique. You've seen some of my Reddit posts recently, so that's me.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean about losing interest for a while. But I always find, even if you lose interest, it's always there in
Yeah.
the kind of subconscious lurking,
Well,
waiting for you to knock back on the door.
You know it's possible, unlike everyone else it seems in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
You know it's possible. And in intervening years, I kind of explored different meditation practices and so on. Had
Yeah.
some pretty cool sort of experiences and development out of that, and that has sort of fed into the astral projection stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. McGuffin, do you want to go whilst we're here, or shall we? Okay.
So I started basically with lucid dreaming from the age I was 5. And for a long while I didn't know what it was. But in my teens I became a lot more interested in figuring out. And so I became sort of skilled at doing that. And then I heard about Astral on YouTube about 6 years ago. Found out quite interesting, wanted to see if it's true. And so I tried a lot of methods, and about 1 month in, I was successfully astrally projecting a lot. And about 2 months ago, I think, Gene contacted me on Reddit I'm try coconut oil on Reddit, and yeah, it's cool to find a community that has a lot of similar experiences as I do, and I also feel like I'm sort of the same as I don't know who spoke last time now, but I'm also sort of like um, materialistic when it comes to AP. I've done it a whole lot, but I don't have like insane experiences or whatever. Like I'm very like static and just fly around and enjoy that. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so, AP Adepts, that's what, the whole role behind them is that they have experience, which is what all this server is about, not just speculating, not just intellectualizing, debating, but, astral projection based on knowledge, direct experience, and
Methodology.
definitely methodology rather than, theories.
Just saying, just saying you
Exactly.
can do it.
Yeah. So we have Pawn. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself as well. We've all just gone. I know you've just joined.
Hey.
Yeah, if you want to introduce yourself, you don't have to, but we all just have. So
Introduce myself and
yeah, just like
related to
brief
AP.
description as where your background on AP really.
I came from a very religious upbringing, and I kind of wanted to find out the truth for myself, and that got me into astral projection, where I read a lot about it. I have a ton of books on it, and I employed a tactic of using affirmations and intent work before going to bed, and that led to spontaneous out-of-body experiences. They culminated in about several years ago, and I had a kind of satisfaction from that, which kind of keeps me from pursuing it as hard as I was back then, if that makes any sense. It's a little bit difficult to explain that, but
It makes perfect sense. I
Yeah.
feel the same way. Like once you're seeing a lot of the stuff, you're like, I'm happy having this from time to time, and knowing that I'm not gonna, cease to exist once I'm dead.
it's
I get
weird because
comfortable with
people will ask for like, well, why don't you try to do it all the time? And it's just that kind of satisfaction just kind of keeps me from doing that. It's like this core feeling that's deep down, right? It's
So
not. It's like in my subconscious.
don't feel
I just
let
try to help
down
other people.
about don't feel let down about what other people tell you, because like if your life gets in the way of being able to focus on astral projection, then that's totally fine.
It's kind of like maybe I'm not supposed to right now. Like I did, and I have a bunch of
Exactly.
experiences, and now I'm here to help other people do the same. But
Yeah.
most of mine, like I've never gone through, like some of these other people, I haven't gone through the transitionary phase that much, like the vibrations. I never felt them. All
yeah.
of mine have been spontaneous. Like as soon as I fell asleep, I just somersault right out of my body, or
Yep.
things would happen. So I kind of skipped those phases. So I'm not very experienced when it comes to like what to do when I'm in those phases. Like I'll give some
Mhm.
advice, but most of my advice is like before going to bed and falling asleep, and then once you're out.
Yeah.
Wow, you're lucky. You're very lucky.
Okay, thank you. I've got a DM from Az. He wants to introduce himself as well. I think he's relatively new. So, Az, if you want to introduce yourself, you said you're quite experienced. So,
Hey, and by the way, I'm not experienced.
Okay.
I've had experiences which, I've triggered, but this was time before because I had a period where I astral projected kind of consciously, like I knew what I was doing, but the reason why I discovered astral projection was because so this one night I randomly woke up, and the day this happened was really, it was a casual day. I woke up. It was after a weird dream I had, and then I woke up, and then I got out of my bed and I looked down to the mirror, and I saw this kind of entity. People take the mick out of this entity. They joke around saying it looks like plankton, It's in my profile pic right now.
Oh, so you're the one that made the Reddit
Yeah, I was the
post.
Reddit. Yeah, I was the one
Okay.
on Reddit.
I looked at that post
Yeah.
and thought, right, this is
Yeah, I
just
was
going to
annoyed.
be a minefield for reports. And there were so many reports, I ignored them all because I just couldn't be bothered.
Yeah, but thing. So yeah, I got up and then I looked down to the mirror and then I saw the entity and I was like, holy fuck, what is this? And the second I saw it, I had like this weird vibration thing. It was like zzz, like the typical vibrations you get when trying to
Mhm.
exit yourself when you're returning back. So
Yeah.
I got the vibration thing again and I came back into my body. And then after I woke up, I thought, oh my god, I had such a weird dream. But then it was a couple months after. I was researching on YouTube lucid dreaming, and then I stumbled across astral projection. And I was like, holy, what is this? And then I watched a video that was explaining the different stages. And then the vibration stage really was weird to me and getting sucked back into your body. So I was like, holy shit, maybe the little cute demon thing I saw was real. And maybe the experience I had was just a different kind of, dimension or different field in our current reality. So I was like, oh shit. And then, it was like a goosebump moment. I was like, holy fuck. And then I was scared for like a couple of weeks, but later on I forgot about it. Then one night, so I'm religious, but I don't want to disclose my religious because I don't want to seem like I'm pushing it out. But I'm religious. So one day I randomly woke up around 5 a.m. and I was like, oh my God, this is such a beautiful day. So I went to go take a shower. I ate some food and I came back and I was reading my religious scripture. I was talking about this book is for those who believe in the unseen. So I was like, I got goosebumps because I was like, oh my God, a couple months ago I had like an unseen experience, like out of this world. And I go to sleep, not knowing anything. But then all you see, I have a weird dream. It's like I'm in Tokyo with my mum and then I do some weird stuff. And then the dream ends. But rather than waking up in my body, I wake up right in the center of my communal flat. There's like a garden there. In our communal flat, it's like, yeah, it's a garden.
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm randomly just standing like, holy fuck. And it's in the morning as well. I'm like, holy fuck, I think I'm having an out of body experience. I literally fly around, check around, fly around the flats, and I can feel this is the part that kind of confirmed it for me 100%. I felt a neighbor of mine having an argument with her husband. And I also felt, so this is a bit private, but I felt my mum and my mum's husband having intercourse. That's a bit out of context, but yeah. And I felt two people arguing. So I literally fly around. I saw one more entity. It was like this tall, blonde man. His hair was flowing down. He was muscular, had abs. He had a white robe under his belly button. But yeah, and I'm like, oh shit. I literally fly back. I can see my body through my window. And I get back into my body. I'm like, holy shit. I think I'm like, because I was fully aware whilst I was outside my body that on who I was, what I ate, what I did. But yeah, so I get back into my body, and when I come back, I'm fully paralyzed. And if I want, I could have got out of my body again. Like I could kind of do that rope technique because I heard about it. So I tried doing it, and I got to a point where I was getting halfway out of my body. And then I was like, no, fuck this, I've had enough. I got the sign I needed personally. And then I came back into my body. And after that, I've fully believed in astral projection. And there was a period in life where I could do it on demand. And I've seen different entities in the astral world. And I've seen entities whilst I had sleep paralysis. And I was like, holy shit.
Okay.
Yeah, and ever since that, I've believed in it. But yeah,
Great.
that's my story.
Great.
And by the way, can I personally thank you as well, Gene?
Yeah.
Because I really needed this place. It was like the perfect, timing, because I did a fuck ton of passing. I went to Chinatown, down in Leicester Square, London. And I literally was in a meditation server and he was just so kindly invited me. So I really want to thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, and I
There's
appreciate
a group of us that have made it, so yeah, it's not just me.
Yeah.
I didn't make the astral projection subreddit either. As I said, I've only just come here about 4 months ago myself. I was initially invited here from Samurai, so yeah, I understand there's a lot of people need a place like this, definitely. But yeah, thank you for your introduction. Was that quite recently that you first?
No, this was like mid 2020.
Oh, okay. Fairly recently still. Yeah. Okay, thank you. A wild guitarist has joined. I'm not sure if you would like to introduce yourself briefly. You don't have to. Yeah, if you don't, that's fine. Okay, great. So yeah, everyone has a vague idea of all the adepts. Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry for stopping you. I apologize, but the reason why I felt my neighbors arguing, because essentially when I looked towards that direction, I kind of felt like the energy, and then a few weeks after they break up. So yeah, that was what kind of solidified it for me.
Okay, so that was the end of the
Yeah.
story. Okay, got it.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. Apologize.
You just give us a
Yeah.
bad ending rather than a good ending. But yeah, I understand. You saw their energy and like you understood them as a couple, and you weren't surprised that they broke up from what you saw. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Okay, so we will start taking questions then. You can either ask in voice chat or text to voice. There's quite a few of us. If you're not, say, a wild guitarist, if you're not using your mic, you can, feel free to answer questions in the text to voice. There's quite a few of us, so we will try. I ask the adepts to try and be as brief as possible. It might not be that possible sometimes when you've got really great answers and we're going to be bouncing off each other. But yeah, it should be quite fruitful and interesting. So
Yeah, ask away.
yeah, that's fine. So yeah, anyone feel free to unmute and ask away. There's always
That's too many questions.
there's always that initial silence. After about 10 seconds, somebody's going to unmute.
I asked the question in voice chat, but I want to ask it here as well. Do you believe time exists in the astral plane, and what exactly is time? How does it apply to different dimensions?
Okay, I'll tackle that one very quickly. No, I don't think time exists in the astral plane. I think once you go beyond the fourth dimension, which is time itself, it's over. At least from my perspective.
Yeah, there's definitely a progression of events from A to B in the sort of way that you might expect. And you can have conversations, cause and effect exist, but at some level, time is pliable, can be traveled through. I've done it myself. So from direct experience, I can say that time there is it's unusual because if time is that flexible, it's like, why do any events there happen at different times at all? It could be that as you approach Earth, as you approach our dimension, time becomes more and more of a thing, and in another dimension, it's just not a it's not a consideration at all, or it's just a way of cataloging spaces and events.
I guess it depends on what your definition of time becomes, since time in the physical is, the union of measurement. I guess there is a form of time in the astral, but it functions much differently than what you would presume time to be here.
I agree. I mean, when you're talking about the closer you are to the physical, it might have some impact. Maybe that's true. Like it's something that's hard to test, right? But it's definitely a physical concept since we're so used to it here, right? I do remember going out on a big excursion and I saw where I was, there was day and night cycles. But I think that was more something to do with like a familiarity of the physical than actually something they use to measure time with. And if time exists over there, literally nobody cares. Like there is no concept or worry or anything revolving time that people actually, like beings over there, seem to give a damn about. The only thing, like for me, because I'm bound to here currently, when I was out, it felt like 2 to 3 days there, and here it was approximately 2.5 hours. So there's some kind of compression of experience on the other side, at least, that's going on in relative to here. But if you just exist out there, you don't care. Nobody cares. Like they didn't talk about it. It just didn't seem like to be any kind of worry. And even with other people's experiences, many of them talked about beings telling them, hey, time is not an issue. You have all the time you could ever want for anything. It's not a problem over there.
If anyone's a Star Trek fan, the Nexus and Star Trek Generations is basically the Astral.
Yeah.
You guys remember?
Yeah. Can also make a point.
More of an OG Trekkie.
I know, right?
Like,
Sorry?
It could be more of an entropy thing, where in a world where everything's based on consciousness and energy is infinite and nothing degrades, there is no entropy in the way that we understand it here. So no arrow of time marching along from one moment to the next in the same sense,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a form of time could exist in the astral, just it's beyond our current understanding as, I guess, like another concept of time could exist in the astral, just we wouldn't see it as being time or understand it as time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to go a bit more scientific, if you look into science and physics, they say the third dimension is the third dimension, the fourth dimension is kind of to do with time, and then you're going higher. So the astral is commonly described as the fifth dimension. So time does exist in the astral, but it's more of a like
it's passive rather than active.
Yeah, it's a
So
cog
it's
in
a
the
frame
wheel.
of reference, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
above it's above time rather than below.
Yeah, can I make a point that is similar? So in my opinion, so first I think we need to realize what time is, because, or how time works, because special relativity points out that time is not constant. It can get diluted. There's time dilation. So the faster you go, the less gravity acts on you, and the less that gravity acts on you, the slower time is for you. So time is relative. So what I think is, because when it comes to the astral realm, have you guys realized gravity is kind of according to your response? So let's say you wake up and you can walk normally like a human, but if you want, you can fly as well without gravity acting on you. So that's one thing I've realized. I can literally fly, but 1 second I'm on the floor and I can walk. So what I think is that when it comes to the astral realm, we're not bound by time or gravity, but if we want, we can act on us. So we can visit a certain place, a certain house, or a certain person at a certain time. Or we can be walking, but if you want, we can fly, or if you want, we can see different times, or we can experience time in different speeds. So I feel like it's all just relative when it comes to the astral plane, because we're not bound by lower dimensions, because it's a different plane.
It's flexible, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely relative compared to here, right, to the physical.
Yeah.
Because
for sure,
many believe that this universe had a start, like with the Big Bang, and then because of movement, time exists. Like we measure time by the movement of everything.
Yeah.
We measure relativity by the light bending around gravity wells, and how long it takes to get to us. But when you're in the astral, like we don't know if, especially really high gravity, like black holes, how do those interact with the astral? That would be something cool to study, but I think that's a bit beyond where we are now, right? Like
beyond our understanding.
I just want to get out. It's like I don't have the tools or anything to study this kind of stuff, since we're still trying to figure out how it works on a basic level.
In terms of gravity, so to speak, you can get a gravity-like effect in the astral through grounding, which you could describe as gravity, but in terms of how we measure gravity, it doesn't really perform the same, with the only factor being that it holds you down, or you're going towards the center of something.
Yeah.
So that's what I meant.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyways,
so Cloudgazer asked me if I can do any telekinesis or clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, stuff like that. So it's a good question, and I think it's a natural question that arises when someone astral projects and practices that for a while. My answer is, the reason why we call it like telekinesis, clairvoyance, clairaudience and stuff is because, we don't know it. It's like saying the word magic. And the reason why a lot of people say that, there are some people that say, you can learn powers from the astral, is because it kind of does open the doors to those kind of phenomena. So, for example, if I'm in the astral, on different occasions, I've experienced talking to someone in hearing their voices, and also with clairvoyance. For say, one time I was in a cinema and I saw a man in a cinema. I looked at his head, and around his head, I felt and saw everything that was to do with his life. So I saw like a cigarette, I saw his wife, I saw his dog, and it's a very common way to communicate consciously in the astral plane. So in the same way, if one is quite advanced, yes, you can experience that in the physical too. And yes, I do have a lot of moments where I do that. I don't have like conscious interest in pursuing those things. Personally, I'm more of a trying to find enlightenment, meditate, explore different realities, try to talk to masters, etc. But yeah, particularly with people, you can test it yourself, particularly with people that you know very well, such as families or friends. You can, if you pay attention and you're very present and your mind is calm and still enough, you'll be able to pick up certain things, certain thoughts of theirs, even being in the same house as someone, you can feel their energy. You can feel what, sometimes you don't need to ask a person whether they would like to do something or not, because you can feel what they're going to say or not. That's kind of clairsentience. That's a very vague explanation or answer to what you asked me, but yeah, I hope that gives you an idea.
Okay. Yeah, I can speak to that as well. The being married for about 15 years, like me, it's amazing how often we think about things at the same time, and we start to say something, and the other person had the exact same thought, or like I decided to make a joke and decided against making it, and then she goes and makes the joke, the same one. So once you're together, once you're very close to someone, that happens all the time if you're sensitive. Or just like intuition, like I never got into a serious car crash. I never broke a single bone in my body. I have escaped very dangerous situations just by being hyper aware of what's happening around me. I have really good intuition. I have strong will. So if I want something to happen, most of the time it does. Or if I don't want something to happen, something goes wrong and that thing doesn't happen. And that's just about having a strong will that will get you there.
Yeah.
I think that's as far as I go. I think telekinesis, clairvoyance, I'm not very good. Once I'm out, I can definitely have basically all of it, of course. But when you're in normal awake life or an awake stage, no. I think go as far as intuition and some very low kind of telepathy for people that I'm really close with.
Yeah, and if you want to pursue that kind of thing, it's a very fine art in the same or similar way as trying to tell the difference between a dream and an astral projection. How do you know? And there's certain times when I'm with certain people and I get very loud and clear voices from that I can hear them in the physical. But it's a fine art of knowing whether your kind of inner mind is saying that, or whether you are picking up what they're saying as a kind of antenna.
It's incredibly hard.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I used to write these dialogues with myself, and I used to think it was my higher self or my soul or something, and I could never pinpoint who he was. I could never say it's 100% not me, and I could never say it's 100% me. All I know is that I wrote 6 dialogues with myself that somehow got written, but I can't attribute authorship to either way, either direction.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Would anyone like to ask a question? Just unmute your mic.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've been wondering, when I've been trying exit techniques and all that, I've been stumbling into the same issue where I have difficulty trying to find out if I'm actually supposed to like physically move or if I'm supposed to, do that kind of pulling action. I've heard people where like when they're out of body, they'll get up and go and get a drink of water or something, and then they'll end up being already out of body, but I'm not sure where to go with that.
I mean, thought in the astral is so the way you move in the astral isn't really physically based. It's more so that your thoughts is what guides you forward. So, like, if you're in the astral realm and you're projecting and you go out of body, you're going to move how you want to move and how well you can perceive yourself to be moving. There is kind of like the buffer zone, like when you first start out, where like you might not be able to move everything because you're not used to the delay in signal in terms of what your consciousness says to your physical body and your consciousness not sending those signals to your astral body to move your energy. But it generally comes down to, do I want to move my left leg forward or do I want to stay it right here? It's just kind of like second nature. You just kind of move and walk around.
Bob said the best thing to do, not like Bob as in Robert Monroe Bob, as in, okay, Bob Peterson Bob said to just pretend like you're already doing the thing to do. So, like, if you're laying down and you want to stand up, convince your body that you're.
Cloud, I think
Until you believe it.
you cut out for a second there. Again.
Oh, of course. I said that Bob Peterson, Robert Peterson, whatever. He said that you just convince your body that you're doing the thing that you want to do. So, like, if you're laying down, you want to be standing up, right? Just believe that you're standing up until your astral body does what you're believing you're doing. It's all about willpower, at least according to Bob.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to wait enough time. It's very common for someone to think when the body fully relaxes and you can barely feel it, you feel like it's time, let's go, and then you do like a movement, and you end up moving your actual body, and you put an end to the whole thing. So that's what I was telling someone else the other day. You just have to be patient. Just wait and wait and wait and wait. Because once the real deal is going on, it's going to be obvious. There's not going to be any doubt about what you can move or not move. But the strategy that I learned, that's the best way to come out, I guess, is related to the tactile strategy, is to imagine that you're grabbing a door handle that's like about 6 feet away from your body. That you know very well, like your door, your bedroom's door handle or something like that. If you imagine how that feels in your hand, and the right conditions are going on, you basically will teleport there. And because you teleported, you're far enough from the body where you can actually start seeing stuff. You can, move away. You're not going to feel like there's this Jupiter-like gravity pulling you back. It's just far enough where you can have a clean exit without any all the drama, trying to roll, trying to ascend. None of that. If you just imagine that you're grabbing a door handle or an object you know really well, at least 6 feet away from your body, it's going to get the job done.
Yeah. When I started out, I remember grabbing onto like my bedside table and pulling myself out of the body, and it actually worked. And grabbing things that are further away than arm's reach, so you get those you get those Mr. Fantastic arms. You stretch them out and you reach and you pull.
Yep.
But after a few months of that, I just started popping out of the body like a balloon lifting into the air in a nice relaxed way. It just sort of loosens up over time as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. When you can do that, it's the best. Or just falling through your bed like a rock. Those are my favorites because I like the feeling of it. And you go so fast, so so far so quickly that after that it's like it's a free for all. Whatever you. The floating up is great, but some people can't seem to do that. They lack like the awareness or the will to really control that process. As people get stuck halfway or they try to move a finger or leg and that's it. It ends it right there.
Yeah, you need to wait. I completely agree. It's just like more time, spend more time in the vibration stage. If you can feel it, just let it wash over you for a while. And then there's a natural process, I think, that occurs on autopilot. You don't really need to do anything. Just let it happen.
That's what I was going to say. Because like every time it's happened for me, like I didn't go through the vibration phases, but when I was out, I felt so weird and different. It was obvious that like, okay, something is different. Something is strange. And at that point, because I could feel it in my head, sometimes I feel like a weightlessness in my gut, and it's like I'm out already. And there were times where it seems like stuff would just happen automatically. Like there was this almost kind of like a rocket separation. Like things are happening outside of my control. Like I'm floating up. I'm not even thinking about this stuff. It's just doing it automatically. And then you can get to the point where, well, I can just stand up now, or it puts you next to your bed, or something happens to get you off your bed. But when you're in that state, there's no question that something weird is happening because it's so foreign and alien feeling to waking life. And once you feel that way, you can get up. So I do think that waiting for that kind of event and not pushing it, because as soon as I tried to like exert my will on what was happening automatically, it kind of killed it. And would bring me back, and I'm like, well, and then I'd feel stupid because I messed up something that was happening on its own.
Yeah, I think one of the most common struggles as well for most people is they don't wait to go closer to the stage of sleep. Just relax. And you can make a exit technique, visualizing a door handle or whatever. But if it's not working for you, just relax. Don't stress. Get closer to sleep. Relax. Go become like dozy and just sleepy. And then when you try to just stay aware of yourself as you go closer and closer to the transition between wakefulness and sleep, and then try again. Just keep. If it doesn't work, just become more relaxed, become more sleepy, and then try again. You're almost going into kind of like a drunk or trance state. But you're trying to keep an element of awareness and control over your intent.
Question. Have you guys ever AP'd while you were doing something menial? So, like, let's say you were on the bus and you were sitting on the bus and you went on the bus every day and you knew your route, blah, blah, blah. And you, like, AP'd while you were on the bus or, like, at school or, like, at work. Can you AP while in a waking state?
Wasn't that just by location at that point? Since astral projection.
No, not by location. Not by location. Like you're not sleeping, and then you astral project.
I never done it. It's
I think I've
might as well
heard
be impossible for
Nico
me.
talking about that.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, there are. Think I would mostly call that the practice of bilocation, which I know Cactus would agree with me, which is a more advanced practice, which is more picked up after a lot of adeptness in astral projection. But for me, no, I've not personally experienced that. I focus.
Bilocation insinuates.
Yeah.
So like
it insinuates having your consciousness in two areas at once. I'm talking about like you're going about your daily life and you're on the bus and you're not sleeping and you're in the bus, but then suddenly you're not in the bus and you're in a separate location.
I mean,
like,
if you were to suddenly do that, your physical body would fall asleep.
Right.
But I mean, for me personally, I'll let Cactus go after this. I just want to say that my primary practice in my daily life is being present from moment to moment, and that's a big part of my practice, and what I'm teaching in my book as well about, and it's kind of related to The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. If you've ever read that, be present here and now. Stop dreaming about dramas or the people that you're going to talk to, or at university or at work. Just be present, be within your body while in physical life, and when you fall asleep, by habit you'll be present in the astral when you're unconsciously out of body. So for me, if I was to kind of completely ignore my physical reality and go somewhere else, I wouldn't consider myself fully present. But yeah, I know Cactus has interesting views on this as well.
So for this, astral projection takes your full consciousness to project. You can't do like a half split. You can't do halfway. You can't do in between. you're taking your full consciousness to project. So say you're on the bus and you fall asleep and you project, yeah, you'd be projecting because you're using your full consciousness. You're incapacitated physically because you're projecting with your full consciousness astrally. If then you get woken up and then you snap back into reality, not trying to reference the meme at all, but you would snap back into reality at that point, being your physical plane. But if you wanted to, like, say, actively project, active projection is by location. The most similar you can get to what you're trying to describing is either directly by location or a pseudo OBE, where an out-of-body experience can happen while you're awake, but you have to be at least semi-unconscious. When I say semi-unconscious, like you're just waking up and you're groggy, or you're kind of sleepy and daydreaming and nodding off. You can have an out-of-body experience then, because an out-of-body experience doesn't require your full consciousness to be attentive, but you're not going to go very far, per se.
Right.
Out of your passive field of, out of your passive spiritual field, that is, unless you get full conscious into the OBE. In terms
I think there's
of being in two different places at once, bilocation is that you're in two separate places at once actively, because you have to be awake to bilocate. You can't be asleep and you can't meditate. You have to be awake in order to pull it off.
Yeah. So I wanted to add a couple of things to that. There's a famous story from the Ayrton Senna, who's a famous Brazilian race driver, Formula One driver, who died in '94. But before he died, he actually reported, he did a lap on Monaco that was like a crazy lap in the rain, and it was 2 seconds faster than everyone else. Everybody, what happened? What happened? And he actually said it. This video of it saying that he was driving, and he was driving so hard that he saw himself driving the car from above the car. So he separated while driving a Formula One car at 160 miles an hour, and saw himself driving the car and did the fastest lap in Monaco that year, and saw himself down there. He does this video, the guy talking about it. And he's not a spiritual dude at all. It's just what he saw. So that's one type of phenomenon that can happen. The physical exertion, sometimes the body might kick your consciousness away from it and take automatic action to get something done that needs to be done, usually in terms of survival or something that must happen.
Yeah.
And personally, I had a similar experience to what Cactus describes, where I was at a friend of my cousin's ranch house, and I think it was the afternoon, I was taking a nap. And I just remember when I called myself lucid outside, and I decided that I was going to go to the future. So I went to like 2029, I think, or something like that, and I could read a newspaper, and there was a book nearby. And actually, I would keep bouncing back between that and being in bed. So I could actually open one eye and see the ceiling or where I was and see that it was dark and see my body. And then I would close that physical eye and be all the way right back where I was before. It was really strange. So this happened like 1 in like 100 experiences for me.
Yeah.
But I think it's basically what you mentioned is, being in two places at once.
That still is kind of revolved around you taking a nap. Like you were still on a kind of a boundary at that point. Like
exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
When it comes to mundane things, like I've noticed I get into trance-like states sometimes when I'm washing dishes, or when I'm because it's something I do all the time, or if I'm driving, especially long distance on I'm going straight for hours, right, on a interstate highway or something.
Oh yeah.
And I'll get into a kind of trance where it's like it's almost like daydreaming, but it seems like deeper than that. And I will forget that I'm even driving, and I'll get to my location and I'll be like, oh, wait a minute. Like all that time just passed and I didn't even realize it.
Yep.
But when it comes to full-blown APs, though, where you're completely out of body, I think that there are physical safeguards that have to happen for the body in order to accomplish that. Because usually, I mean, that's why your body goes into a paralyzed state when you fall asleep, because it doesn't want your body getting up and flailing around doing a bunch of stuff when your consciousness is somewhere else, right? Your body's on autopilot when you're sleeping. And people that sleepwalk, that gets impaired somehow. I've sleepwalked a bunch of times, and I wasn't there, but my body was acting on its own right? It's acting on its own. You're wild-eyed. People talk to you, and you don't you just have one-sentence responses, and then kind of just do something else. I was not there. Right? There's no recall of that stuff.
I used to wake up brushing my teeth when I was a kid. I think.
Yeah.
I definitely sleepwalked as a kid for sure.
So your consciousness isn't there. Your body's just on. The car is in drive, and you've stepped out of the car. Basically, when that's happening. So that shouldn't be happening. When we go to bed, the car is in park when you step out. So you can't. I don't think it's really possible. But that being said, there was, I don't know if anybody watches the silliest show, but Hollywood Medium, and some people might not like it, but it's this famous medium that does readings for Hollywood stars and stuff, and it's on TV. But they did one episode that I thought was interesting, where they hooked up a bunch of electrodes to his head to try to read his brainwave patterns when he was giving a reading, and they were able to see that he was giving off brainwaves that looked like parts of his brain were asleep. So when he's giving a reading and doing this scribbling on paper, part of his brain is asleep, and that might allow him to see things. Like he says he's seeing these other people giving him images and stuff like that he's interpreting for the person he's giving the reading to. And maybe because his brain is in that half asleep kind of state, even though he's lucid and awake, he's able to kind of see and relate information from the other side. He's not fully there, but he was being able to be communicated with, and that's the only thing I can think of in a fully.
It's great.
The hypnotic state or something like that. I don't remember the name, but when you talk about it, that's what I get from you.
To go back to your original question, Cloud, is it possible to kind of achieve an active astral projection? In terms, yes, because that's what bilocation is, just a bit more advanced. You could do what kind of Pawn was talking about, which I think would be kind of like an OBE sort of thing going on, halfway awake, halfway not. But it would be, I'm sure, relatively hard to pull that off. Train yourself to be half awake and half asleep, still be conscious enough to take down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna comment on the car thing. I've had moments when I've been on road trips and I have severe anxiety when it comes to driving too far away from my comfort level. So I was terrified of driving away from my city for the longest time. And when I finally did, I was able to get over that fear. But the last few times I've driven really, really far away from my house, 100, 200 miles, I get these moments when it feels like my body's starting to separate, and I have to ground myself because I'm going 75, and I feel like I can't separate because I'll put myself in physical danger, And so I was wondering if you guys have ever had that when you're driving, you had to physically ground yourself so you stay in your body, because I've had moments when I felt like I'm gonna separate. Fuck. I don't want to separate. I need to make sure I'm safe.
I think that going closer to what Pawn was saying about going into trance-like states while doing the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's one explanation that's kind of funny about jet lag that says basically jet lag is a version of that, but because your physical body has been moving so fast for so long that basically the connection between the two, which is regulated by your brain, gets kind of messed up, at a brain level. So it takes some time for the two to sync up again together. So if you're in a car for a long time doing 75, 80, 90 miles an hour, basically your astral body is always kind of there and, trying to stick to it. And it takes a little while for you to kind of resync and be fully there again.
I will say in those trance-like states that we were talking about, when driving and doing dishes and stuff, I have my best ideas during those states.
Oh yeah. And taking
it's
showers.
It's just, I don't know. There's something about it where you're giving yourself something physical to do that you're very familiar with, that you can just kind of unplug your brain or your consciousness, and it can do other things. Now, maybe you can get not necessarily daydreaming, but sometimes visions of things just pop into my head that I am not having any control over. And I don't know if those would be any kind of like remote viewing, or I have no idea. But that just happens sometimes, and they're usually random scenes that I don't know anything about. But that's something I don't know any information about really.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever have to stim when you're doing it? Like, for me, I have to like hit the steering wheel to ground, and it presents like I have ADHD because I'm stimming, you know, because I'm seeking out a stimulus to keep me like in my body. Like, do you guys do that too to ground yourself again?
I mean, my everyday practice is, always grounding, always being in this reality, feeling, being present, feeling the clothes on my skin, hearing the sounds, faraway sounds, just seeing the actual objects in front of me. Definitely, I think that's important.
Yeah, this is
and
something
you
that
should
I had to
definitely do
go
that
through
when you're
as
driving.
well. Yes. So I have anxiety. I have, basically like low-key anxiety, which is generalized anxiety, and I was only diagnosed when I was like, in my 30s. But before that, when I was in Brazil still, when I first had a bout with depression, one of the things my therapist was saying is that you really should always be present. You should, every time you feel kind of disconnected, you really should think about, what am I feeling right now? What are my hands feeling? Is it hot? Is it cold? Or for food, I used to eat really, really fast. So I learned to eat really slowly. If you're taking a shower, can you feel each individual drop of water hitting your body? So those are exercises in mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
And what I learned through therapy early on, I think I was 20 years, something like that, 19, 20 when I first heard of it, is that for someone who with anxiety like me, that becomes like a life-saving thing that you need to do for yourself. And in terms of spirituality, it's very similar. Like a lot of people use astral projection as a type of an escape. They're fed up with their actual lives and they don't want to be alive really, or they feel they hurts too much, so they decide to use that as an escape. And what I learned is that if you want to have any kind of spiritual growth, real spiritual growth, first you need to be grounded. And once you're grounded, now you can go and explore.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay. So we have Muse and Vanquish now. Muse and Vanquish, we all introduce ourselves earlier. If you would like to introduce yourselves, and then after, we've not actually answered many questions because there is a lot of us. So we'll take questions again, and we'll try to just keep it as brief as possible. But yeah, it's great because every question you get about 10 different perspectives to kind of complement each other, which is nice. So yeah, Vanquish and Muse, if you'd like to introduce yourselves, just a brief explanation with your background on astral projection, you can do, you don't have to.
Okay, yeah. Hi, my name is Muse, and I am one of the moderators here, and I've been I started astral projecting when I was like around 22. I had a couple of experiences when I was younger, but nothing really intense until I was about 22, when I started meditating with a group of 10 friends of mine, and we would do these very strong meditations. And from there, I started meditating on my own, and that's basically. I also read some. I think it was a book by Robert Monroe called Journey into Soul. And after that, I would say I started kind of just really practicing a lot. And I became lucid. And then after lucid, I started going out of body very often. I was just plagued. I don't know if it's where I live or if it was that my dad had some like really weird karma, but my house just had really negative entities here, and that I've spent years cleaning out. And so I was kind of attacked a lot, and so I closed myself off, and I have not been able to open myself back up. So it's kind of sad, but it's kind of cool in a way. Like sometimes like you guys talk about it, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll try again. But I mean, I remember how to do it. I remember how it felt like. I remember what I saw. I wrote everything down. I have all my dreams written down. I have everything documented. And so I remember everything, but I just haven't done it in a while. So yeah, that's me.
I didn't know that about that you've not kind of pursued it since. I hope you do go back with the more positive experiences. I remember, Jürgen said in one of his books that he described that our houses in the astral can be of different planes. So there isn't just a negative version of your house, but there can also be a higher dimensional version of your house. It all kind of just depends on your level of consciousness at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hopefully I can find that.
definitely. Vanquish, do you want to
Sure.
introduce?
For anyone who hasn't heard me or talked to me before, this is going to be new for you, but for others, this might be a little bit of a rehash. But I didn't start astral projecting intentionally. I'm one of those strange cases that at about 4.5, almost 5 years old, I had a rather significant near-death experience, and unfortunately for me, it sort of robbed me of a childhood, because the idea of immortality and that kind of innocent idea that I'm just going to be forever kind of was robbed from me in one respect. So I ended up having to grow up rather quickly, and I was part of no real clique, and I ended up being an individual that kind of had these strange lucid dream / astral projection experiences. After that, I also suffered from precognition type experiences as a result of what I experienced as my near death. And so now I'm 34, going on 35 this year. And, 29, 30 years of kind of these types of experiences, you lose track, and sometimes it takes another person to remind you, oh yeah, I had an experience like that. And they just kind of, one experience after another kind of gets lost in time. No pun intended there. But I've had thousands and thousands of lucid dream experiences, many of which I do remember. Astral projection experiences, at least hundreds, if not already past that number by now. And I've had all sorts of different types of experiences. I've had everything from extremely low vibe, formless or form or like Earth type experiences, all the way to no form, and even paradise realm type experiences. And I've been on other planets. I've certainly been in space, kind of. I mean, really just a diverse set of experiences. And so what I do here is, in the best of my abilities, to help other people be able to achieve astral projection experiences, and certainly lucid dream more often. And yes, it is true. My fastest astral projection, but it only happened once, was 3 seconds. And it requires very, very specific circumstances. But that experience helps me to teach others that there are very specific circumstances that you need to get yourself in to really help you. So it was definitely a learning moment, and now it's a teaching moment.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So would we like to carry on the questions? Does anyone want to unmute their mic?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a really quick question. It's something that's going on right now. So right this second as we speak, and it's been happening for the past week as well, I have this really high frequency kind of ringing noise in my ear that varies in frequency. It's like, it goes up in frequency and then it kind of varies. It's like it goes up and then it goes back down. And when I meditate and focus on this, the frequency gets so high and I have like this weird feeling. It's hard to explain. It's like a full...
I actually get that quite often too. The mainstream people would say that it's tinnitus, but I get it at very specific times of the day, especially before I start meditation as well. So I don't know if anyone has any insights on that.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's different.
Oh,
sorry. So sorry. Can I quickly explain something? It's
I believe...
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, because there's something else I need to add. Because the thing is, when I focus on this a lot, because normal tinnitus, it's like, it's in my ear, but it's just one frequency. But when I focus on this, it has like a presence of its own. It's like, it can go really, really high pitch. It's like out of the 20k hertz frequency range, and it's really weird. And it kind of leads to weird stuff during meditation. But yeah, sorry.
So I believe that to be what's called tonal frequency. So tonal frequencies are essentially frequencies of certain calibers or very specific frequencies that give off a spiritual byproduct of energy. And when you're going through meditation, sometimes you'll hear it through astral projection or through meditation, depending on the meditation you're doing. Often you'll hear it when you're going through the vibrational state in AP. You'll hear one of those frequencies. These tonal frequencies, as stated before, give off energy. And because of that, when you hear them, you're hearing them, but also obtaining energy from them. And that's why it comes across as like a loud pinging or ringing, as the higher the frequency, the higher the amount of energy. So it's probably just you passively gaining access to your energy, spiritually speaking, without you even realizing it.
Yeah,
But due to the frequencies existing there, that's the whole ringing in your ear going on.
that's interesting because I've never really given it much thought, but instinctively I've been using it as a kind, because it's always been happening before I start the practice of meditation. I've been using it as a kind of wake up tool to be like, okay, Zen mode on.
Like every one of your ambient videos or ambient noises to help you AP, project, or meditate, those are all considered tonal frequencies. They're layered frequencies on top of each other that produce spiritual energy. That spiritual energy can range anything from, it's usually kind of specific depending on the frequency. And depending on the frequencies, there's like one main frequency surrounded by like a couple variations, like 4 or 5 up or down, where you could get the same sound, or you could get a very similar sound with the same energy type or same effect of that energy, but it can vary.
Yeah, this is something I've been looking into recently, with the connection to the astral projection vibrations. I'm now of the belief that what we're hearing there is like a narrow band of the full broadband astral projection vibration system, whatever that energy system is. We're hearing a little bit of it, because I put a big post up on the subreddit recently about it too. I was able, just a couple of nights ago, with sufficient focus and intensity on that sound, to widen the band to the point where it just became the vibrations of astral projection, and I was out of my body, flapping around like a salmon in the air, with no control, because I wasn't expecting it to happen so directly,
Yeah.
I'm of the belief that when we experience these frequencies, and certainly the ringing in your ear and the harmonic resonance can be extremely loud to the point it actually causes physical pain and perhaps even damage if you a little bit of damage if you allow it to go so much. I mean, I had my right eardrum almost blow out one evening as I was doing an exit technique, and the sound got so loud in my right ear that upon exiting, it literally sounded like my right ear had nearly shattered. It was very, very, a lot of pressure had built up. But when I exited, as soon as I got out of body, naturally there was no feeling. But when I got back to body, my ear hurt pretty bad for 3 days. So you have to kind of be a little bit careful. But if you read about what feedback is with sound, with music, it's self-replication, right? Of that frequency, of that tone. It's self-replication, and it's kind of locked in a system of repeating, and then that's what causes the buildup almost of wave pressure, but that to create that sound that you hear, that what sounds like a mic kind of almost wanting to blow out, or speakers wanting to blow out, because it just keeps replicating. And certainly you can blow them out if the replication gets extensive enough that it kind of overloads the energy, or the level of the energy that it can sustain. And so it's sort of the same thing with when we're trying to get out of body and we're achieving these frequencies. I believe that we're in the process of separating from the body. It's almost like a replication factor. We ourselves are existing here as a sort of subdivision of our conscious frequency and our consciousness itself. So when you get into kind of like these in between states and you don't shift fast enough, you kind of stay in the in between longer, you tend to build up these kinds of biofeedbacks, and it's very, very common. And I call it astral turbulence because, I like to joke like it's like taking an air flight and you're kind of going through a little bit of a rocky flight than that's comfortable, and it's because of unexpected, but the reason you get air turbulence is because you're kind of in between two states of air, right? Air mass. And that's a lot of the reason why turbulence even occurs. And so it's kind of like that, but without air. Imagine you're trying to shift out of body or shift to this other state of perception, but you're not completely shifting and you're kind of like going in and out. And that self kind of repeating factor causes this buildup of all sorts of different kinds of biofeedback, but certainly some of the most common are ringing in your ears or this sound that kind of is focusing. And when you get into transcendental states, that's essentially what you're doing. You're forcing yourself to get to the in-between state. But if you stay there long enough and you don't shift, it's very common to start experiencing these kinds of biofeedbacks. And there's all sorts of names for them. I didn't really bother to give it a name other than to just call it kind of turbulence, astral turbulence, if you would. But I hope that makes a little more sense.
Yeah, great.
So
Okay.
my daughter wants to ask a question. I mean, she's asked it already to me, but I told her to ask other people because there's so many of us here that maybe somebody, I didn't have exactly her experience, so maybe one of you have had something like this. Here.
I
Hello.
I had kind of strange experience with like dreams and stuff like that because and just like overall, like I guess I don't know, life, I don't know. But today I was coming back home from my school and I looked at this cloud and I was talking to my mom talking to my mom about how the clouds looked all funky, and like randomly I started seeing like this kind of like dot in the sky, and then I saw a bunch of arrows kind of going into the dot as if it was kind of like a little like kind of like that, but if they were all moving towards the dot, and then the sky went all gray completely, like I couldn't even see the clouds anymore. And then I looked away from it, and then I looked at my mom, and then I looked back at it, and then the sky was normal for like 2 seconds, and then it faded back into that thing, and it was just really weird.
Were you lucid or just a normal dream?
I was just looking at the sky. I was just in my
awake.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. This is the physical experience.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was completely awake, and this just randomly happened.
I see.
And I don't know what.
So, something that immediately comes to mind for me is, so when you awaken your third eye, which is the sort of gateway to your pipe that goes straight down to your soul, kind of like the piping for the energy coming up from your soul. When you awaken your third eye, you kind of have this sort of, it varies from person to person, but some of them kind of line up, where it's a little dot that you'll end up seeing in the sky or around you, and the arrows going towards it is sort of you representing or sort of manifesting and rather seeing the pipe from your soul to your third eye kind of manifest almost.
That came to mind for me as well, like an eruption of
I
energies.
believe it's just kind of like, I believe what you're seeing is rather you're becoming more aware of your energy, and thus you're tracing your energy back passively to where the gate is, and the gate is your third eye. And so because of that, you're seeing the dot, which it's probably closed, or if not closed, creaking open slightly. So it's opening up the more that you're becoming aware of your energy, which is a good thing.
Yeah. And that
I
could
just feel
Interestingly enough, sometimes when I have my eyes closed and I'm like, right before going to bed or trying to meditate, sometimes I actually see like little balls of energy, very faint, coming out from my forehead, going out towards something. And they almost look like data packets, and that's as far as clairvoyance goes for me if I'm actually awake, is to see this very, very faint, almost just like the silhouette, right? these shapes, kind of circular, coming out from my forehead, from my third eye, all outwards towards something. So it's interesting that you guys have mentioned that, because that's kind of what I see. So
Yeah.
I think it's just you becoming aware of your energy and you becoming aware of where it's coming from, and that your third eye is opening up slightly. It's going to take time for it to fully open up, but you're getting there. You're
Yeah.
really getting there. Kudos and congrats.
Yeah. It's kind of like, and the darkness of the clouds could symbolize the kind of the start of it, you know, like you like a flower flowering, but you're still, the flowers haven't fully opened yet, so it's quite dark inside.
That's
Possibly.
cool.
Yeah. But yeah, and you know, for me, I always when you look at the sky, it's always kind of an inspiration to kind of open these energies, whether in the physical or astral.
Oh yeah, another thing about skies is whenever like whenever it's winter, the clouds kind of clear, and for some reason whenever I like look at the sky, it kind of like feels like if I'm somewhere where I've never been, but I've been there before. Does that make any sense?
You're getting deja vu.
Yeah.
So that could be either, again, as you're becoming more aware of your energy, it could also be that some people have links to like their past lives based on certain triggers. So like you'll be coming up to a trigger point of like a past life that was super important to you for some particular reason, and that it'll just trigger memories either for you or from your past life where, oh, it feels like I've been here before. I know that I have had times where I get that sort of deja vu feeling where in a past life it was a super important place, but for me it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
Where
it's just every
we're just kind of triggers almost. And it's like, oh, hey, it feels familiar.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's just, every time I kind of look at the sky, it's just kind of like that, and it just kind of freaks me out sometimes because it feels like I'm somewhere different, but at the same time, it doesn't.
How old are you? Do you mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm 12.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, Muse, you've got quite a gifted child.
Congratulations. You're
but
doing something.
Yeah,
You're doing some stuff more advanced than any of us could probably pull off at your age.
And I think, I think it's common for a lot of children to experience these things, but they brush them off and they don't have guidance because they're naturally a little bit more open, usually, because of their less.
I imagine how many people were labeled as having mental illness because they experienced APs, or sleep paralysis. Like even today, with science, where it is nowadays in psychology and everything else, a lot of places, if you go and start talking about it when you're in your teens, they're gonna think you're insane. So it's funny how not having this knowledge can really mess someone's life up. It can drive them to like hard drugs and things like that if they feel like they're experiencing something that's unnatural, and then they start believing in all the other stuff, the demons and the monsters and this and that. So just broader knowledge of this would make a big difference.
Yeah, I was going to say my parents probably think that something demonic was happening to me.
Yeah, I understand that. Where when I first started out practicing alchemy, they're like, "The fuck you doing?" It's like, what are you doing with those? What are you doing with that dirt over there? You're weird, man. You're weird.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
pretty much
Okay,
every time
so-
I talked about that stuff with my friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're still weird. We're just curious.
Yeah, I'm considering myself to be still the puppeteer lunatic with the voices in his head, but I'm
So we have another question?
Still a weird.
Yeah. I got two, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, good.
Lay
The
it
first
out.
one is pretty simple. So, my cousin, a couple months back, he kind of had I want to get your guys' opinions on evil, like demonic stuff. I guess he had an event where he kind of was speaking tongues, and kind of his body was spazzing out. What's your guys' opinion on that and how that would occur?
First off,
I think it's his unconscious. I think it's just coming from him. At least that's what you see in a lot of churches when someone speaks tongues.
I
Yeah,
would,
why
do you
I
think
would
it's
lean
coming out of
towards
your
demonic?
head?
this. Yeah.
Why would you say it's demonic?
Well, that's just how it's portrayed. I've become more open minded to. It's more than just
Hello.
demonic. Like it's
Good.
not black and white. There's
I have
gray.
4 or 5.
So
So
how did you feel
Someone needs
about
to
it?
mute their mics.
ooh,
Yeah, I muted her.
I wouldn't say it's demonic because
Yeah.
demon slash jinn function on their own stuff separate from you, and while there are spirits you could classify as demons, air quote, they
Mhm.
usually don't have anything to do with you, nor do they really want anything to do with you. They
Yeah,
kind
they
of just
don't
like,
give a shit. Yeah.
I don't really want to be around you. Just fuck off. In terms
Gotcha.
of what it could be, going based off of going kind of off what Ant-Man Rising said, it could just be he went unconscious or slightly projected into the astral realm, but tried describing it, and it was coming back as gibberish as he was trying to describe. Basically, maybe he was sorry.
No,
I'm getting
maybe
a
he was
talk
he was
short.
actually he was talking back in his like another language, that he
Yeah, like
found in that. Yeah, I've spoken in
Okay.
other languages, yeah, and stuff like that. That has nothing to do with demonology or anything like that. I would say anything that has to do with demonology or that really negative entities like the ones that I found have more to do with like entities that will try to trick you and then try to like suck your face off or try to take
there
your
has to
energy
be
or
like there has to be a more elaborate setup
yeah.
rather than just they possess you.
Yeah,
There's
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah,
there
like
Well,
that
has to
seems
be
very benign.
Or some people can
Good.
just see it as demonic in the sense of that it's just someone's unconscious. It's just someone's ego. Nothing's happening. They're just doing this thing, and that can be the case as well for some people.
Oh,
And in a lot of these churches, remember that the members want to go through that. It's a state of exaltation, right? As the Catholics call it.
mhm.
So people, it's positive for them to go through that somehow. They get attention, they get special treatment. So
Now,
there's a reason, there's a psychological reason to experience these things, and that's why a lot of them happen because they're predisposed to experience that.
in terms of what
Okay.
it could be, is he could have projected, and in terms of like what it could be projection wise, I've had and seen people where they tried to project or astral project or unknowingly astral projected, and while they were doing so, they kind of projected off or had a bad projection state where their astral body wasn't strong enough to hold their consciousness, and their consciousness fractures and starts fracturing infinitely, taking in a lot of information,
Mhm.
which can result in a lot of gibberish and a lot of different languages because you're taking in all the information of the astral at one
Mhm.
given time.
Okay. And then with that, my second question was going back to the third eye. So I don't know how you guys see the chakra, just the energy centers. Is that kind of a necessary thing to kind of go through with, or at least it's very helpful?
It's helpful. It's nice if it happens, but it's not a
Definitely
requirement.
Yeah, it
helpful.
can
Okay.
be.
Not
I think
necessary, but it's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if
Yeah,
you
it's like
and
you
it
know where to
can
go.
yeah, and that kind of center usually if one follows the path correctly and starts having projections and starts awakening and starts becoming enlightened, that kind of center does naturally and gradually open, I would
It's like
say.
you can get the same
Eh,
process through
Mhm.
like the spiritual alchemy ladder, or you can get the same thing through Buddhism. There's other methods out there for obtaining that energy that
Yeah.
chakra does. It's just that it's extremely helpful. Is it necessary to do anything spiritual? No.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
do without
Well,
it.
there's
very
one big reason to have a developed third eye is being able to see in the astral plane. Because
Mhm.
if you're kind of messed up there, you're gonna be blind every single time you come out, and that's annoying as hell. Like because you might not even have the will to say, I need to become lucid, I need more light, or use a mantra. Even if you do those things, it might not be enough to actually gain your astral sight back.
Mm.
And I think that's a really important step for anyone who wants to do this. You got to be able to see what's on the other side.
Yeah.
Well, like,
And being blind is not fun.
The third eye is important. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, I'm just thinking like I didn't do any of that stuff. All right, like I'm a complete layman when it comes to that stuff. I didn't do any energy work, no chakra stuff.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
just
Yeah.
went through the like I did a technique and it ended up working over time as once I kept on it. And so I would say that it probably can help. But if you believe that you have to have your chakras open and stuff like that, then you will. Because belief is that strong when it comes to it, right?
Yeah.
So it can be detrimental for some people who are like, well, I'm not going out because I need to do all this other stuff first, XYZ, in order to achieve what other people are achieving. But
Yeah.
that's not the case. You don't have to do these things, right? You don't have to have some diet of only vegetables or do all this chakra work and stuff. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
All right.
And,
'Cause I'm proof of that, right? I'm
Okay.
just like a bum that do it. And when it comes to like
Living
seeing
proof.
the astral and stuff like that, I do think that when we go out, we can have a varying quality of connection. I kind of liken it to the internet, right? Sometimes I'm dropping packets, and I can't see, like it's fuzzy, or I feel heavy, or I'm just not that grounded in it. And just sometimes I don't know exactly, like I can't tell you, okay, this is why that happened. It's just sometimes I go out, it can be crystal clear and I remember all my goals. Sometimes I go out and I don't remember my goals and I think of stupid things like I should open my eyes, even though I'm currently seeing, which makes no sense. And then I open my eyes in real life. So my quality of connection, my quality of thought can vary sometimes just going out. And maybe chakra work will help that. I don't know.
I
But
personally
Also, I have
looked
a
into.
question.
Cool. I'll just go quickly. I've personally done some chakra work, and when I was, as I said earlier, when I was part of the Gnostic group, the teacher that said something interesting about how if it is possible for some people to just activate their third eye and they only focus on the third eye, it can kind of be negative in a way, in the sense that they haven't, if you look into the kind of system of the chakras, it's important to start with the base chakra first. That's your connection to reality, and if that's all blurred, it has all like black patches all over it, and you're just skipping straight to the third eye and it opens, well, what are you going to see? You're going to see all your subconscious first. You have to start with the base reality, which is your root chakra. All your fear is there, and then you go up your kind of emotions, and then you go up to, I think, the solar plexus. That's your kind of personal power, and then you go to the heart, which is enlightenment, love, etc., and then communications, and then it's the third eye. So there's a lot of energy work surrounding it. So
Yeah, well, that was my thing with that, just because, sorry if I interrupted somebody, because I had a poor childhood, and had a lot of mental kind of mindset issues. So I didn't know if that would help alleviate things, or if it would at least kind of give me the better mental environment to project.
In terms of seeing
Yeah,
the
it's.
astral,
Go ahead.
Oh, there's a lot of different ways you can see from opening up your third eye. You can use auras to help you read the energy and do it through kind of like an equation where aura plus aura equals this color, which means this thing. Or you can do it through the energy work method where you feel out the energy and you do it based on touch and senses.
Mm-hmm.
You can also do it through where you do it where the negative escape, or the through your shadow self, which is what I do, where you essentially view everything as a black and white monochrome kind of structure, where you see the outlines of things and you see detailed outlines of all the different details, but you sacrifice your in color view for more of a monochrome view. And it just kind of comes down to what is your preference and what do you feel is the best way for you to see and obtain that information, but also keep the information without your mind going, "Holy fuck, what did I just see?"
Yeah, and
Also,
if you
I
have
have an
a, if you had a, go ahead.
Muse, I think, or
sorry.
Muse's daughter.
Sorry, I have an off-topic question.
Yeah.
But it was kind of back when you were when somebody talked about sleep paralysis. What do you guys think those kind of like entities come from? Because I experienced sleep paralysis when I was 4, and it was like that shadow person, and I experienced them again when I was 5, but it was a different kind of person, but it was going around the same lines, and that was the entire reason why my
I'd
I
say
have
it's
some
just a
fun
lower.
stories.
like kind of explained all these things to me and kind of told
Yeah.
me to come. Sorry?
You don't need to worry about these things. Is the first thing. They have no. If they have any reality outside of your own, you have to remember when you're in that state, your mind has awesome creative power, and so every little fear is magnified and actually created in front of you sometimes. So if you have any fear of the dark, oh well, there's a shadowy thing. If you have any sort of basic animal fears that we all have because we're descended from animals, they're going to manifest. Now, the weird thing is, I've also interacted with what seemed like beings with their own consciousness and their own continuity. Like one time, I had a sleep paralysis episode. I was facing away from the door, and behind me, I could hear two of these beings talking to each other. One said, "Oh, they terror. They hate being afraid. So just watch this." It was like it was training the other one in like basic skills for for frightening people with sleep paralysis. And then I started asking the questions. I said, "Were you ever alive? What age were you when you died?" And that sort of thing. They didn't like questions at all. I said, good luck to you. You're not going to frighten me. But then later that same day, like I got up, I had something to eat. I went back to bed for another astral projection attempt, and this time I was on my back, and those two beings were still in the room, and they kind of just sort of petulantly jumped on my stomach and bounced out the window. And it was almost cartoonish in the interaction that we had, because I'd kind of transformed the relationship from one of fear to sort of just general.
Like a playfulness almost.
Yeah, there was a playfulness. Like I was antagonizing them, and they were done trying to scare me. And I don't think since then I've had any negative sort of beings around me during astral projection or sleep paralysis, and I've had some nice beings. Apparently, there's one time I was in sleep paralysis, and there was this gorgeous girl was like just sitting on the end of my bed, just looking at me, like sort of like she was intrigued by what was going on. She had sort of a smile on her face, looked sort of modern dressed, like a normal person. I was like, "Oh, how have you got into my room?" sort of. But that was it.
Yeah, I can vouch for the fact that I think 95% of these things are from your unconscious, And if they're not from your unconscious, they're from your collective unconscious, which still doesn't mean it's real. You just tuned in on that frequency, it's like radio. And a lot of beginners don't really know how to tune. So it's a thing, right? The old thing. Oh, you want to watch a horror movie? Because you saw a horror movie, you have nightmares. Because you saw something bad about astral projection, you have a bad experience about astral projection. You're just a sponge, right? You can't work those things in and out as you get more experience. So 90 to 95% of everything you see, the entities you hear, talking on your ear, moving in the bedroom, trying to hold you back, all of that stuff, there's a large probability they're not really there. They're yours. They're part of your shadow if you're going to be psychological. You need to make peace with your shadow, learn from it, so you can transcend it. So you can become a more luminous being. You can't just deny your shadow. You need to embrace it. Now the other 5%, might as well be there. Rarely they're bad, but if they are, they're not as powerful as you are because they don't have life force. Basically, they're not alive. They can draw from food and from air like prana. They don't have access to any of that. So you can easily make them regret very quickly to be messing with you, if you need to. So there's no reason to be afraid. That's the conclusion.
Yeah, it's just that the reason why I was kind of freaked out was because of the fact that I hadn't watched a horror movie. Like I watched like Coraline when I was 10 months old, so I can't really recall that movie. But I didn't watch anything really horror related until I was like 6 or 7. So it kind of caught me off guard to see something scary, and my mom was also caught off guard because
Mhm.
the fact that I hadn't ever seen anything that was like, you know, scary, or
Yeah.
for me to think that there was anything bad. So it was just a very strange thing to see a man in my room holding a sack and a top hat
Mhm.
with a coat and looking
Yeah,
at
maybe
me
it's
like he was gonna steal me.
maybe it's an entity, you know, maybe it's an entity, who knows? But I think the fact that some of these things we are tuned in on them as a species. We are gonna see the real ones, or we're gonna see the fake ones. So
Most
I think,
spirits
yeah.
don't want anything to do with you. So, like, when you are going through that sort of sleep paralysis state, you're kind of almost at the like connection point. You're almost getting there. And so, for like the man with the top hat, could have just been a spirit that was passing through, saw it, and it's like, the fuck is going on over there? And then you
Mhm.
see it as something terrifying because holy shit, there's a thing in my room. I didn't want it. Why is it there? So like you're fearful of it, but it's just kind of like, hi. Okay.
And a lot of times, you know what I noticed? This has happened in different places that I lived. There are different entities that happen to live where your bedroom is. You know, that's their little corner of the world, and they're happy being there. And suddenly they see this bright, shining light, which is what we look like on the other side. You know, we're like a sphere of consciousness unless we materialize a body somehow with the astral plane. So unless we have a body, we're just basically a sphere of light that's conscious. And they see this blinding light coming out. You know, the process of getting out, and it makes them pay attention. You know, so for a spirit who's just being very kind of barely conscious to go into their afterlife, like who knows what's in the house before you? You know, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. I literally had a projection in LA once that I was like in an Indian village. I was like Native Americans walking around, and you know, I'm like, oh my god, I went back like I don't know 600 years ago or something like that. Like I couldn't believe it. You know, so there are all these layers where we live. Waking reality is just a top layer. Like there's all kinds of things happening the deeper you go. And I think when you go out, you end up lighting up this big flashlight and say, "Here I am, hello." And then some of those entities you just kind of stop and pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Cool. Do we have another
Thank
question?
you.
Thank you.
I'll be heading out now, Gene, but it's been a
Okay.
wonderful
Yeah,
time
thank
so
you,
far.
Cactus. It's been almost 2 hours anyway, so yeah.
I hope you all have a fantastic time, and as long as this event continues forward, please ask more questions. Ta-ta.
Yeah, thanks,
See ya,
Cactus.
Cactus.
See ya.
Ciao.
Anyone have a question?
I have.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you guys were talking about the third. Do you guys think there's any significance when it comes to DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and your further experiences? And do you think the human brain does hold DMT? Because it's not been proven yet. Yeah, that's my
I think the
question.
brain can produce its own chemicals to have spiritual experiences, and if you do it with something outside like ayahuasca, you know, it's still valid, but you have less control over it, which is why it can be dangerous. Like some people can have a psychotic break if they have ayahuasca. I had a chance of doing that in Brazil as a teenager. No, I was a young adult, and I basically refused. You know, my girlfriend at the time, she went for it, and I said, like, I know this is gonna mess me up. I'm staying away from it.
Some people say that DMT is produced in the brain and the pineal glands
Yeah.
of rats, which has been proven. So there is a chance that the human brain can produce it as well, and it's one of those natural chemicals.
Yeah, I think it's
I
the
think
same
so.
with cannabis, right? We have cannabinoid receptors in our brain, and
Exactly.
yeah, it doesn't surprise
Can
me.
I take this one?
Sure.
So there's
Yep.
actually a paper. There's actually a paper done that explains. I was actually talking about this the other day. That this paper actually explains that DMT is not the main chemical inside the brain. When you are going out of body or when you're dreaming, it's actually a mix of chemicals, and that is a myth that it is only DMT. So what I think what you need to do is study a little bit more about what the actual brain does give out when it's dreaming. The best way is always going to be through meditation or through just natural circumstances, whatever they may be. Using some sort of drug or whatever, is always just going to be you using some sort of crutch to get to the end point. You get what I'm
Shortcut,
saying?
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you're always going to depend on that. If you start that way, you're going to depend on that later. And
Yeah, let's
then
use a
you're not
gaming
gonna
metaphor.
learn.
You know, it's like cheating in Dark Souls. You know, like no one cheats in Dark Souls. There's no point. Might as well not play it. You know,
Well, I mean,
better to get good on your own.
but even then, though, the experiences that you have with these really powerful hallucinogens like DMT are so different than
Yeah.
when you go out and have a projection naturally or
Right.
intentionally. Like I tried the smoked form of DMT and I wasn't able to get out, but my friend sitting next to me, he did, and it was not pretty to watch because he was really fighting.
Oh God,
But
yeah.
yeah, he was like rolling around on my floor.
It can mess you up.
Like,
Yeah.
but he said that he flew through a tunnel because the thing is with this stuff, you're getting shot out of a cannon into an alien world that you have no reference about, and you're
Right.
getting
That you've never
flooded with
practiced for.
you're getting flooded with so much information in a span of like 15 minutes that you don't understand what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
Right. And he was like, yeah, I flew through this crazy tunnel. I ended up in a void talking with some being that looked human. He said it looked like me, but he said that it was having a logical argument with him on the nature of his reality. And it was saying that you don't exist, your family doesn't really exist, all of your friends and stuff, it's not real. And he was like, nope, he couldn't handle that because he was so connected with his family and everyone that he was fighting that idea. And it just wasn't pretty to watch. And then he had an ego death in my bathroom. He was naked in my bathroom and apologizing for having died in our
Wow.
bathroom. And we're like, no, you're fine. No, don't call the police. No, don't call your family. You're okay. So
You're not
it's
dead
just,
yet.
you don't have
That sounds
control.
really bad.
You don't have control over the experience.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
you're
It's
being
like what you
taken
said.
somewhere and you're shown something. It's just it's overwhelming blast, you know, and you can't do anything. So doing it the way that we do, you know, like intentionally, you have a lot more control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
it's like
it
what you
lasts
said.
longer.
Going into a cannon is a good analogy. And what's
Yeah.
worse is people don't approach it as, you know, this is going to be a teaching lesson or I'm going to learn from it, but they just do it for the fun of it. They don't know what they're getting themselves into, and they want to just do it again after, you know.
DMT is not like that. At least it's so weird that it's like, okay, there's no you can't develop a dependency because it's so off-puttingly alien and strange.
Yeah, you're
that,
just vomiting like a maniac, and then you trip. So yeah.
I learned, and that was it. And I don't want to try it again. Even during, he was like, I never want to smoke or drink or do any drugs ever again. And that's kind of common for people that go through it. They actually don't want to do drugs again. It's really strange, but it's interesting.
Well, mushrooms alone are so powerful that they basically can treat PTSD, you know, which is something that's now becoming accepted by the US government and science and everything else. So that's how powerful they are. You know, PTSD is something that scars you for life and you never escape it. You know, it affects your waking life, your dream life. So think about how powerful mushrooms must be to be able to positively impact someone who's been in wars and had come out scarred from it. So that's how powerful they are.
Very true.
Do we have another question?
Sorry, I have another one.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is related to the same topic on the third eye. Do
What's
you
happening?
think? Do you think fluorination? Do you think fluoride inside tap water or
You
or
can.
other chemicals affect people's spirituality or third eye, or the food we eat in general, and like GMO stuff in general?
I think it can. I mean, there are significant things, but it's something I personally don't stress about too much. You know, there's a lot of older spiritual teachers who are close to death. You know, just think that, you know, it's just a physical body, and we often attach ourselves to obsessing over it and thinking about it when, you know, the astral is a complete separation from the physical, and you know, when you're old and weak and you're gonna have all sorts of pain and weaknesses, but you'll still be able to astral project if you know how. It's all about being detached. But yeah, personally, I still do have fluoride-free toothpaste and stuff. Just try to be as healthy as I can, but I don't obsess over it or think that it's going to improve my practice of astral projection tenfold.
Yeah, just to add another data point there, like I've been drinking fluoridated water my whole life, eating meat, eating all kinds of terrible stuff, and I don't have too much problem with astral projection, that sort of thing. So I think it's one of those things that if you read somewhere that this is a problem, that meme itself is a problem. You know, these ideas can jump from one person to another, and that actually becomes a blocker.
Yeah.
Because you believe it, you know.
Yeah, definitely an important point. It goes back to what someone was saying about the idea of chakras being something to overcome. When you're trying to astral project and you're trying so hard and you've made so many attempts and you're just struggling, the mind likes to think of so many different reasons and give excuses as to why it's not happening. So yeah, these are definitely easy things to think about or rationalize. Another question, anyone? If you don't want to ask in voice, you can ask in text to voice as well.
Question.
Yep.
I was just wondering if anybody's had experience being pulled out of their body or helped out of their body by an entity or another a peer.
No,
I have.
Yeah,
this
I
is my
have.
territory too. Yeah.
Yeah, I basically asked for help when I was younger, I think in my early 20s. Sometimes when I wanted to come out and realized, I was in that state where the body's basically almost fully relaxed and you're in that in-between state. And I would say, hey, can someone help me, please? And then immediately I would get someone who would go and grab me by the arm and pull me like with everything. I'll be out in a second. The problem is that sometimes they did that, and then now you're enrolled to help someone, so you're dragged, say, in some situation where you're supposed to help people who just died or some natural disaster. I remember I had one where there was, I think, a big earthquake the same night, and then have fun because it doesn't come for free usually. If someone's going to help you, it's because you need it. So.
Yeah, I remember I think my actual first OBE at all was triggered by a dream of someone at the top of some stairs sort of waved me up with a big smile, like, "Come on, take a step." And as soon as I took a step, the stairs disappeared, the dream disappeared, and I swung upwards in my bed, like swung or sort of rotated around my hips until I was sort of floating, like going, "Whoa!" So that's my very first OBE, was helped, I believe. But then
That's awesome.
I had a really really odd. Now this only ever happened once, possibly because of how I reacted when it happened. But I was just sleeping casually, face down in bed. This wasn't long after I started astral projecting either, and I felt this pull in my feet, pulled me a few inches down the bed. And whatever state of mind I was in, I was like, this is annoying. I just pulled myself back up the bed a couple of inches. Then I pulled again. I was like, oh, stop it, that's annoying. And finally, I felt two strong hands grip my ankles, pull me right out of the body, and bounce me off the wall behind my bed. And this guy, who actually my icon is a representation of the guy who I saw. He had a big smiling face, glowing blue in my bedroom. He had these long robes with all these sort of angular designs all over it. And he seemed so pleased with himself that he had helped me out. And because I had no idea what was going on, I had no time to think. I raised a fist and I said, "What's this? What are you doing? Get out of my room!" And the guy sort of just disappeared in the point and disappeared. And then I was like, oh no, sorry.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So mine was negative. Are you asking for negative or positive?
Yeah, definitely both. Both.
Both? So I have the negative one. Here we go. So mine was that I was thrown out of my body. So mine was that basically I started just when these things that started coming to me started bothering me a lot, which I finally completely destroyed, by the way. I became a complete warrior, but while I was still like kind of afraid of them, they were kind of being real pains in my ass. And then in one of these, I basically just was going to sleep like a normal sleep. I really hadn't planned on having any type of AP that night. I really just wanted to sleep because I had already had a lot of AP and I had been traveling for too many days already, and it gets tiring after a while because you don't really like completely sleep. And so at least I didn't. And then and so I was like, okay, tonight I'm just gonna have a nice sleep. And all of a sudden, I basically closed my eyes, and the next thing that I know, I was in the middle of the street. In the middle of the street with the cars coming, and I was like, how the hell did I get here? And so basically the rest of the dream, it was me trying to find my way back into my body because I was in the middle of some random place that I had not asked to go to, and I did not know where I was. So, but I did get back to my body. It was quite fairly easy. And the good thing is that, sometimes, yeah, I guess I got thrown out of my body, but I learned how to make it back. So everything's a learning experience, right?
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think I've had. I mean, I would like to think that beings or anyone has helped, especially when I first started. I was so kind of desperate to leave my body, and I did kind of pray for someone to help me. I did have one experience where I had the hypnagogic colors swirling in my vision, and I came out to in like a stairway, and there were two people there, but I wasn't completely conscious, and these two people basically said to me, you need to go higher. And then above this woman there was a sphere, like with like a scene inside, which I entered, and then I eventually went into an astral projection. So Ryan Cropper was here the other day, and he was saying, there are sometimes beings or people who are always trying to kind of help us, whether they're your guides or something. Yeah, I think Sage, did you want to share your experience?
So mine was, it didn't pull me completely out of body. In fact, I think it actually stopped me because I was experiencing sleep paralysis and I had an entity interacting with me. And this was at the point where I was experienced enough in my sleep paralysis that I wasn't really like experiencing fear or projecting my own, I guess, expectations on the situation. So I was fairly certain it was an actual entity. And I actually started trying to follow it as I could feel my sleep paralysis ending, and I got half out of body, and I could see my like legs and half of my like torso sticking off of the bed, and then it like touched my forehead, and I woke up laying down just back as I was before. So I almost like followed one out of my body before I ever actually projected or knew about projection. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
No, interesting.
Super interesting.
I've had a lot of invisible helpers get really bored with me, basically.
I think it's common, more common than we think.
Oh yeah, like I have definitely felt watched, like that kind of like something's observing me kind of feeling. Practically every time that I went out. One time was really funny though because I was halfway out. I've told the story a bunch of times, but I had projected, but I was still laying in my bed, and I lifted my arm and I was looking at my arm, and then my arm went translucent in front of me, and I was like, "Whoa!" Just staring at it. And then I was like, "Okay, I want to get up." I just said out loud, I want to get up." And I just hear this voice say plainly, "Get up." Like, "You idiot, just stand up."
Yeah, just stand up.
Please just stand up. I'm so bored. I've been waiting for you. It's like just get up. This is my job. I'm here. Just stand up. But I was too transfixed on my arm. I was like, this is weird looking. And I was like, make my arm come back. And then I just woke up. Wish granted, there's my arm, and I felt stupid. But when it comes to negative ones, I've had one that started negative but turned out kind of like I learned from it, and it was interesting at the end. I've had another one where like my own wife attacked me as soon as I realized I was out. But that was my own anxiety. It was like my own anxiety about it just created that. But the one where I did have a negative entity, that one was weird because I was dreaming at the time, and I was a little Japanese boy in a school, and none of the other kids would play with me, and I was really sad. And I was like, I was remembering a time when I had friends, and I just remembered laying on the ground on my side, my right side. I closed my eyes and I was crying. And then I felt something, I felt some 2 points of pressure on my side, on my left side that was up. And so I opened my eyes and the room was completely dark. All the kids were gone. And I turned over to my left side and I see this thing that was like prostrated. So it was bent down on its knees and it has its arms extending and it was touching my side. And I looked at this thing and I started to stand up and it started to stand up at the same time. And it looked like a tall, gaunt, extremely emaciated woman. And I only say woman because it was like there was a sense of like breasts and stuff. And it was wearing rags. And it was gray skinned. It had long arms that ended in two stumps. It didn't have hands. It had two necks that went up and joined into a bulbous mass at the top for a head. It had no mouth. It had two giant round eyes that with no lids, just staring, and like scraggly gray hair. And as soon as I was standing up and this thing was standing up, it started to chant at me. It was like Omnia, 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 just coming out of nowhere. And I was like, what the hell? And I went lucid instantly. And I flew up and away from this thing in the room. And it's just looking at me. And I woke up immediately. But I could still feel it in the room. It was still in the room. In waking life, I could sense something was in the room. And I got up, I got some water, I went to the bathroom, and I tried to go back to sleep, and I could still feel it there. And it took like a half an hour to fall asleep. And as soon as I fell asleep, I'm dreaming again. I'm the same boy in a different location. I'm in like a traditional Japanese house. I'm packing bags for a trip. And I turn around, and this thing is right there, standing right there in front of me. And it's just looking at me. And I was really annoyed. I was like, I was annoyed that it was there. And I just basically told it to shoo. I was like, go away. I don't want you here. And it just stood there staring and then eventually left. And
Yeah,
I
like
felt
if you get pissed off, they leave. Like if you get really upset, they just leave. They get scared, I guess, of us. I don't know.
I wasn't scared of it. Like I was just annoyed, and I think it was just observing me. Like what I really think happened was I was dreaming, and I was sad in my dream. It was passing through, and it saw me and decided to like feed off of my emotion, like that sadness, negative emotion, and it was absorbing it or something. It was getting something from it. And I had noticed it, and I think the fact that I had noticed it made it stick around because it was surprised that I saw it. So it was curious, like some kind of sense of curiosity, and then it left. So it wasn't really negative. It was just because it looked so weird to me and creepy, it just made me like that kind of fight or flight response.
So when I say negative, they're all kind of like that, though. They're all just kind of just weird. They're weird.
Yeah,
you know?
I felt bad for it. You know, like I felt kind of pity for it afterwards because it's kind of just this creature that runs off instinct that it's just doing what it knows how to do, and I just felt sorry for that kind of existence. You know, and I think if you portray that towards them, like pity and compassion and stuff, they'll take off. They can't handle that. But yeah, that was my.
Awesome.
I never. All right.
No, yeah, go on. I was asking, do you have a question? Or? Oh, it's
No, I was like gonna talk about something that happened to me like pretty similar, but like I never got pulled out, but I think I got helped pretty much. I mean, I'm not sure because this is recent. This is recent. Like it happened about less than a month ago, I think. I was lucid dreaming, and there's like this figure, uh, who manifested as a blonde woman. All right, so like she basically came at me and like tried to give me lucidity and stuff, and told me to look in her eyes. And what I saw was a clean representation of the third eye chakra, like in both of her eyes, right? And she told me to stop looking. And then she told me to look again. And what I saw again was another representation of like planets and like basically a universe, right? And she told me, find me there. And once the dream ended, like the dream kept going on, right? But like when the dream ended, um, I woke up and the same day, like I wrote it on this Discord, and I had another and I tried to induce a projection. And what happened? Basically, like it has been pretty easy for me to project that day, and I found that figure, like that blown figure, like oh my god, my English is so bad. That blonde woman figure right in my room, and she told me to remember about um what she made me look in the dream, and yeah, and like she helped me. I don't know, like I have that feeling, but I'm not sure. And like that projection, I basically went where she showed me in her eyes, and yeah, that's I don't know. I mean, I have a god. I got helped by her, but I'm not sure. I also wanted to hear from you guys what you guys think about it because I don't know. That's
Yeah.
just a god for me.
No, it definitely could have been. Yeah, I've also heard of some. I can't remember where I saw it, but someone used to run classes, and she would get people to sleep, and then she would pull them out of body. But I don't know how common. I don't know how real that is, and even if it was real, I don't think there would be any guarantee of whether that person would be conscious of the experience or not, and whether that would help them reproduce that as well. Again.
Yeah, I just this week, I found myself astral projecting spontaneously above my body in the middle of the night, and I had no plans, so I reached over to where my wife sleeps and thought this might be interesting. I will try and wake her in the astral and make her remember this happening. And I got a very clear response from her in her voice, but it was like a slightly deeper, very sonorous, very level voice with no breath associated with it, just like pure voice, right? And she said, "Don't think I don't know what you're up to. Now is not the time." And I started laughing and just went back in my body. But I found it was such a funny interaction, and there's just no way someone, at least I don't think, if someone who's not already receptive to the idea, is they're not going to suddenly be able to do it, because I suspect that part of us is conscious. We in the astral at all times. We have. I've found myself doing things like in the middle of work and on the astral planes when I become conscious, and it's like my presence has just disrupted something that was going on anyway.
Yeah.
I've just arrived here. So I think unless the, that person is already prepared and sort of mentally receptive to the idea of their earth consciousness entering their astral body, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I think if it was possible to do that to anyone, this Discord would be a lot bigger. I think people would be out of their bodies, pulling everyone out, going into everyone's houses and pulling them out. But there's always, I think there's forces, subconscious or conscious, that kind of prevent us in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I'm not saying it's not possible. Could be
Yeah,
possible.
I tried to pull somebody out, but it didn't go really well. So I'm not gonna do that anymore.
I mean,
that happened with my mom. I tried to pull up. I think I talked about this already in the Discord some time ago, and I tried to pull out my mom because like she's really into astral projection, but like she never had any experience. And like she told me, "Can you pull me out and stuff?" And I tried, but what came out was like a crazy figure of a woman that started screaming and stuff. And like I was paranoid, like paranoid a lot. Like she could have manifest something really bad and like go back to body right now. Like I came back to body and woke her up and like, "Mom, are you okay?"
Oh,
And
man.
like never did it again.
Did she have any recollection of what happened? Or sensed the woman or something?
Yeah.
It makes me think about somebody like, hey, teach me how to like program, or teach me how to like play basketball right now. And it's like, well, no, there's a process in a way. I guess some can be very natural at it though, and some have to realize it themselves.
Yeah, I
feels
guess it's that. But like, I spoke to this about the stuff with Vanquish, like when it happened, and he said that what could have happened is that I pulled out a part of her that wasn't ready to go out, which is very true.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, has
Curious.
anyone else had interactions with or like seen family members around their house just sort of doing weird astral things that they are not conscious of at all? I mean, I remember once, and this is weird because I was just in bed. I wasn't trying to astral project or anything like that, but it just sometimes you're just in that consciousness, you don't even know it, and you just go on to sleep. But my dad walked into my room, and at the time my room was out in a garage, which is separate from the house, and also it would be very strange for my dad to appear in the middle of the night. And he just sort of walked into the room, kneeled down in the middle of the floor, and put his hands like a little pillow under his head and laid down. I was like, "Dad, what are you doing?" I got up, no one there. You know, I do believe that part of us wanders around a little as
No,
well.
absolutely. I think people do it, pretty much every night. Come out unconsciously and just do random things, and go around the house, dream in a dream state, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been going for about over 2 hours. I've been recording for our YouTube, so I'm probably
Oh.
going to stop it soon. Do we have any more questions? And when I do stop it, we can just stay in the chat. It doesn't have to be so formal. Anyone can just have a big open discussion. But do we have any more questions?
Actually, I have a question that sort of piggybacks off of that, which is that I'm wondering if when someone is, say if they visit on here on like the physical plane, someone else's home, and a person is sleeping, like what amount of actual interaction can you have with that person?
If that person, so say you have a guest over, you're asking if you can have an interaction with them in the astral, if they sleep over at your house.
I stumbled upon, or maybe if you travel to their house, say you're traveling and you're like just flying through and you see somebody sleeping in their bed or something, can you actually interact with them?
Oh, with their physical body, you mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I stumbled upon a weird sort of thread where I read about this guy and he was like, "Oh, I've been like going around and like creeping on people." And I don't know whether or not the people like realize it or what, but I just wanted to know if anybody else had that experience. Like, what happens if you're going through on the physical plane, like you're seeing people?
Well, I live in a semi-detached house, so that's where you have sort of two houses pushed together. And I have occasionally, although I've never admitted this to anybody, I've occasionally walked through the wall into the neighbour's house to have a look around, purely because they're always drilling and banging at something. It's like they've got some DIY project that's been going on for 8 years, and I'm dying to see what it is. Right? That's all. That's the end of my curiosity.
Yeah.
But like all I've ever seen in there is just normal house stuff. I've never even seen their sleeping bodies or anything like that. I have gone in the other houses and found families doing like sort of little family rituals, like making breakfast and like, but you talk to them and it's just you're talking to something that is not aware on your level. It's not aware in your plane. It's like talking to a voicemail rather than having a conversation.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think I feel like there is sometimes certain forces or energies that can stop you from going to certain places. Perhaps certain people's houses as well. It can be. It's basically like a lot of people ask questions. What it's like. What a certain experience would be like in the astral. Well, you just compare it to physical life. What would happen if you walked into someone's house? Nothing might not happen if nobody notices you, but if someone does, they're going to shout at you and tell you to get out or something, aren't
Yeah, I've been rejected and chased while snooping as well, and I don't snoop at much, and it's
they? Yeah,
not like that's
sure.
my go-to thing.
Yeah.
It's just like sometimes I'm like, what's in that house over there?
Yeah.
And you'll go in and someone will start shouting. Maybe, yeah, just the other day I had an experience where I don't think I was on the physical plane. I think I was in another astral realm of some sort where there was a physical like town or city, and I went into these people's house and it was like a burglar had arrived in their house and they panicked. It's like they ran from room to room and so on. I don't think they could see me, but it was almost like they knew something was wrong. They knew there'd be something had invaded their space, and when I went into their backyard, I was actually chased by like a headless, handless entity, which woke me up straight away. So that could have been some defense mechanism of their own.
Yeah.
Or could have been my guilt for wandering through someone's house.
Yeah. I've had a few experiences where I've flown into someone's garden, and then the people that were there got shocked or scared. Maybe because they're kind of unconscious and they're not used to people flying, or just because I'm an intruder in their house and they don't recognize me. Yeah.
I got a question, but Gene, I understand if you're recording, I could ask afterwards or something.
Oh no, it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, last night I kind of did the wake back to bed, kind of like wake up at like 4 a.m. and then kind of like got some water or used the restroom. And then I've felt vibrations. I don't really like to call it the vibration stage because then it seems like it's like, I don't know. Anyways, but the thing is that like I've felt like that I've built myself consciously aware of what I needed to do, but the feeling of fear arrived in me because it was like a fear of the unknown. And I think that's kind of what hindered me. And it's just that trying to break that bridge in a way. I guess my question is are there practices or things that are maybe outside of working towards AP that would help to kind of promote oneself of like maybe I guess aligned with like courage in a way. I know that I was listening to y'all earlier and talking about like being present in the moment and trying to or not having emotions kind of dilute the experience. But I'm just wondering if there's like if people have like maybe practices or things that they keep in mind, say alongside with like keeping yourself in the moment, or kind of like letting things go, that really has kind of helped them to kind of get to that point of just allowing the feeling, allowing yourself to be in that moment of not having that fear kind of take you over.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is one of the most important questions and the most significant hurdles towards astral projection. Definitely. For me, it's more being logical about it. You know, being objective about the reasoning as to why I'm feeling fear in the moment. You know, trying to just be objective. If you like, you know, Zen Buddhism, or you know, just the general feeling of Zen is about being impartial to all the kind of emotions that arise and not putting more emotions and more reasons on top of your emotions, you know, not reacting to your own emotions. You know, it's okay to feel the fear. You can recognize it, but often we get caught up in it, you know, we get carried away with it and we don't like it. You know, as the saying goes, feel the fear and carry on anyway. Yeah, it's definitely a big one, a big learning
Yeah.
step.
And don't be hard on yourself either,
Yeah.
because this is such a weird thing to for our basic human. There's nothing like this in basic human experience, day-to-day human experience, and you're expected basically to go alone into, you are essentially alone, although you might meet other things, friendly things, but they're friends you don't know. You're in a place that's dark and strange and behaves with strange rules. It's going to be weird, and you kind of just have to forgive yourself if you're afraid. Laugh at yourself, laugh at situations. Laughter's brilliant against, any kind of shadowy thing. You just laugh it off. Nothing can stand in the face of just a good mood, and a good attitude. Another thing you can do is test your own day-to-day fears that you have in waking life. Like, for instance, if you have a weird fear of the dark, if you imagine things chasing you in the dark, don't do that. Don't imagine things chasing you up the stairs in the dark, even if it's fun, because things will chase you up the stairs in the dark of your own creation when you're astral projecting. So, like, wander around in the dark, make a cup of tea in the dark without burning yourself. Do that. It's like, face your, like, if you don't like looking in mirrors in the dark because of some old wives' tale story from, 30 years ago about Bloody Mary or something like that, look in the mirror. Look at yourself for a while in the mirror in the dark and see what happens. It's just a mirror. You find and dispel these weird irrational fears, and then just sort of go easy on yourself for the rational fears.
Yeah, I'd like to also add that nothing can hurt you. Nothing that I ever found like actually hurt me. There's really nothing to fear. It's actually I was a big coward, myself. And I feel like if nothing ever really hurt me and nothing ever did anything to me. So just always know that you're always protected. You're always going to be okay. Now, it's not to say that, you can let anything in or, let anything come inside your body or anything like that. But just know that you have the power over anything that you meet there. You're not going to be hurt. You're not going to be, you're not going to die. You're not going to have a bad experience. Even in the worst experiences that I think I had, even when I was thrown out of my body, it wasn't a bad experience. It wasn't like, it was weird. It was bizarre, but it wasn't truly scary, and it was always really interesting and really fun and really exciting to think that I was, in some other dimension or something. So don't be scared. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. That's my advice.
Yeah. Out of all my
Well, thank you.
experiences, yeah, I've only had a few, only a very small percentage of those experiences, and most of them were when I first started. And so just be sure of yourself when you do start having these experiences, and if there are some negative ones, but you overcome them through overcoming your own fear, you have less of them because you'll understand that, you won't be affected, and that the emotion of fear isn't really useful.
Yeah, no, thank you all. I really appreciate that input. Yeah, I think part of it too is just like I've had like partial out of body, like I could feel my arms not being in the spot that I think they were, so I've kind of had some interaction of that, but yeah, no, that's really appreciative. I really I wrote down what you all said, and I'll definitely think on that. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a little scary at first, but you'll be okay.
Yeah. I think from a Carlos Castaneda book that's always stuck with me is he said that one has to always feel like a warrior, act and feel like a warrior, and nothing, can stand in your way. And sometimes I approach it like that, I feel like a warrior, I'm not going to be scared. I'm going to do this. I'm motivated. If something comes at me, I don't care. I'm going to do this anyway, just be really strong and steadfast in your intent.
Yeah, I became a dream warrior, I must say. It really
Yeah.
toughened me up.
Okay, great. Well, that has been a great session of 2.5 hours. I'm going to stop recording now.